Oh.
Anyways, that's my top 10 Mario Party minigames. Join me again in I don't know how long when we cover the worst Mario Party minigames. Anyways, that's my top 10 Mario Party minigames. Join me again in I don't know how long when we cover the worst Mario Party minigames. Anyways, that's my top 10 Mario Party minigames. Join me again in I don't know how long when we cover the worst Mario Party minigames. Anyways, that's my top 10 Mario Party minigames. Join me again in I don't know how long when we cover the worst Mario Party minigames.
Alright, I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. We all know what we're getting into, so let's just do this. Same rules as before, only mainline games, one minigame per franchise, no boss minigames, and just know that it's my list, so take that with a grain of salt. Alrighty, let's do this. Oh god, this is gonna hurt. Okay, so like I said in my last countdown, I've had very little experience with Mario Party 7. I think at the point it came out, I was kind of getting tired of the whole franchise. It was kind of getting repetitive and the minigames were becoming so gimmicky that I found the overall experience kind of dull, and I was really hoping for a change in the core gameplay of the series to really spice things up. God, I really wish I could have taken that wish back. Anyways, I didn't play much, but from what I did play, Battery Ram really stuck with me in a not-so-great way. The whole premise of the minigame is that you and your partner must traverse this maze while holding this battery on a long metal frame. The objective is to get to the end of the maze before the other group of two does. It's particularly annoying because the corridors that you go through are extremely narrow, so the room for error is very small. There's so many times I think that I found the correct path, only to find out it was wrong, and then I have to backtrack. Sometimes the battery or players will clip on the wall, so even when you should be moving, you won't be, even if you're in the right path. And this just came to me while I was writing the script, but yeah, why don't they just carry the battery without the frame? That would make it like 100 times easier. Jesus Christ, it's so fucking stupid. You ever have that one game or movie or TV show or whatever that you really enjoyed as a kid, but looking back it was actually a steaming pile of crap that's been tinted by rose-colored glasses? For me, that game was Spider-Man Friend or Foe, but that's a story for another day. In relevance to the topic at hand, I'd probably have to say it's Candlelight Flight from Mario Party 4. This is a 1 vs 3 minigame, and I can promise that it will not be the last one on this list. The one player is holding a candle in a small dark room, while the other 3 players have to try and defuse the flame with water guns before time runs out. 5 successful sprays and the candle goes out. I think younger me really thought this game was quite an intense one that constantly kept me on my feet. Nowadays, it gets me on my feet for reasons of anger and frustration. If there's one thing I can say about this minigame, is that it isn't specifically unbalanced towards one team or another, something that plagues a surprising amount of 1 vs 3 minigames. Nah, instead, it's unbalanced towards both sides. You're probably wondering, but Dan, how does that make any sense? Well, the one player who has to hold the candle is only allowed to run away from the other 3 players in the dark confined area with no ways of fending off their foes. Meanwhile, the 3 players have the ability to run around and shoot their water guns, but for some reason that baffles me, they can't do it at the same time? What? Why do you have to stop to shoot the water gun? I like to think someone at Nintendo was like, oh, you know the term run and gun? Well, we're gonna take that and change it to run or gun. It's got that Nintendo charm, don't you think? Oh, Mario Party 10. I try to stick up for you, saying that while you do have many flaws, You really do pull through in the minigame department. You somehow managed to produce a plethora of solid minigames in a frequency that we haven't seen in a very long time. But in that sea of quality was a rotten old piece of kelp called Blooper BlastOff, and it stank up the whole ocean, along with other non-minigame aspects that I doubt I have to clarify at this point in time. In this minigame, each player is controlling a blooper submarine, and they must race to the surface. To do so, you must tilt your Wiimote in a direction that you'd like your submarine to face, and then press the 2 button to ascend. The problem here is that the controls are rather slippery due to the fact that you're underwater and using motion controls that feel a bit half-assed. And if that wasn't hard enough, you gotta dodge jet streams, torpedo Teds, other subs, and more in this race to the top. And while the scenic direction isn't terrible, it kinda just looks like an underwater level straight out of new Super Mario Bros. Games. I swear, sooner or later they're just gonna run out of ideas for the franchise, and then they're just gonna port an old one to the Switch. Oh, no. You know what, maybe I was a bit too harsh on that last minigame. I mean, it had a relatively interesting concept behind it. You're trapped at the bottom of the ocean and you have to get to the surface before you run out of oxygen. Seems a bit risque for Nintendo, but with the direction that they're currently going in, I'm not surprised if they had something bottled up for a while. Alright, so let's look at a minigame with some basic motion controls in Mario Party 9 called Pit or Platter to make up for how I treated the last one. Okay, so in the game, you have to tilt the platter to get the ball to the lit up area to get points, and then you that's it. That's all you do. For 30 seconds. Just tilt the Wiimote to move a ball to a square. Can someone please tell me in the comments if I'm missing something? Because it feels like I'm missing something, but I can't put my finger on it. And hey, while you're down there, why don't you put your finger on the subscribe button, and then the little bell to keep updated as to when future videos will be released. And I'm talking about your mouse, not your actual finger, because that just smudged up your perfectly good monitor. Anyways, back to Mario Party 9. It would have been interesting if maybe the characters were inside the balls to add a bit more tension, but no, they're just your generic run-of-the-mill ping pong balls, marbles, whatever that you can buy at the store in a pack for like $2. You know, a lot of people labeled Mario Party 9 as the game that killed the Mario Party franchise, and a lot of that labeling came from the choice of adding the car mechanic to the main game. But with minigames like this, there's no doubt that this did not help defend the game at all. Something interesting implemented into Mario Party 6 was the day-night mechanic, originally introduced in Mario Party 2. 6 is where it really made its impact, basically being the center focus of the entire story. Every board went through a day-night cycle, and some of the minigames were affected by this as well, varying from minute changes to completely changing the objective of the minigame as a whole. Alright, why am I bringing this up? Because even though it's affected by the day-night cycle, freeze frame is still a bad minigame. In this minigame, you have 10 seconds to take a photo of as many Goombas as possible. However, there's also special characters that will net you more points. During the day, there's Shy Guys, and during the night, there's UFOs. Those may sound interesting in theory, but here's where the problem starts to form. You see, you only get 10 seconds to make one shot. So if your finger slips and you press the button too early, or you don't even notice the timer at the bottom, well then you are SOL, buddy. Though to be fair, I guess it really doesn't matter, because if you just get a smidgen of a Goomba or a Shy Guy or the UFO, you'll get like full points all around. Looks like we now know that Professor Oak wasn't the one grading these shots.
You were close!
Professor, I caught like 4 Goombas in that one shot. They were clearly in the center of the screen and only a fraction of their bodies are cut off. I'd say that was a pretty good shot for someone who's literally never done this before, don't you think?
You were close!
You know what I just love in Mario Party? Learning. So you probably could just imagine my excitement when I learned about Mathletes in Mario Party 5. Oh, 6 times 6 is, 36. Yes, I'm so good at learning!
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Okay, so we got another 1 vs 3 minigame, and the objective is that you want to get a high number since that'll reflect how many coins you get in the end. The player 1 goes first, and there's 3 blocks. It's their objective to hit all 3 blocks, with the first and third representing a number, while the middle block represents a mathematical symbol. After the player goes, the team of 3 is up, and they're all assigned to their own block. Whatever their final score is reflects how many coins each of those 3 players get. So automatically, the minigame's already leaning towards the 1 player, since they can systematically manipulate the blocks to their own favor. Meanwhile, the team of 3 is going to have a harder time communicating since they can only take care of 1 block instead of all 3, leading to an easier blunder on their parts. Wait, why are you cheering? You shouldn't be happy. The amount of coins you gained combined is barely half of what Mario got. Yeah, how's that for math, you smiling bumbleheads? But most importantly, it's math. And I don't need that in my Mario Party game. I already have enough of that in my everyday life, so thanks for reminding me of that. Something that I really enjoyed about Mario Party 2, which is something that I mentioned in my last list, is that it was able to take a bunch of classic minigames from the original Mario Party and updated them to be a lot more accessible and feel a lot more natural with updated control schemes, mechanics, and objectives. It really shows that the developers really cared about the original Mario Party and wanted to uphold the legacy of some of the classic minigames that defined the game. The amount of sweat and tears it probably took in choosing which minigames to rework and then actually doing so really proves to be a labor of love, whether the changes be minute or rather large. And in the end, it definitely helped define Mario Party 2 as one of the most solid entries in the entire franchise. So why the fuck is Crane Game here? In this 1 vs 3 minigame, 3 players are turned into dolls reminiscent of that one episode of Pokemon, yeah, you know the one, and are put inside one of those arcade crane games. The 1 player acts as the claw and has to pick up the other 3 players and drop them in the pipe. And unlike the other Mario Party 1 minigames in this game, Crane Game got a massive downgrade, at least in my opinion. See, in the original version of the game, all the 1 player had to do was get one of the 3 other players in the pipe to win the minigame, thus making it relatively quick and painless. In this version, however, the 1 player must get all 3 characters in the pipe to win. That may sound like it's giving the team of 3 even footing, but in reality it's just delaying the inevitable. The game is heavily favored towards the 1 player, as the only way you can get out of their grip is if you button mash like there's no tomorrow, and 9 out of 10 times that doesn't even work. And even if it does, it won't matter, because there's time boosters like all over the ground, giving the 1 player plenty of time to try once, twice, or even 3 times more. God, the one time it would have been beneficial for the Crane Game to be rigged just a little bit towards the house, and it even screwed up on that front. Now, I may not be an English major, but I don't think you have to be a genius to understand what a minigame is. Here's a hint, it's in the name. A majority of minigames last about 90 seconds at most. The beat goes on from Mario Party 3 can last upwards of 4 minutes. In this minigame, the player plays Simon Says, but with drums. They have to copy the drum hits of the Shy Guy tribe on the center platform using the A, B, and Z buttons. Forget the fact that there's a huge advantage for the person who has to go last, because the minigame is already easy enough as it is. It moves at a snail's pace, so you shouldn't have that much trouble remembering the pattern. I will say, out of all the minigames so far, this one has the most accurate name. The beat really does go on and 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 on.
There's a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground beyond light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the boring zone.
Here it is, folks, the moment you've probably seen coming from a mile away. It's those minigames that keep you awake at night, giving you flashbacks that you'll never forget and still have the scars to prove that it wasn't just some hokey campfire story. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Blister Tetralogy. Yes, these 4 minigames were synonymous with blisters, as it required players to constantly rotate the hard plastic joystick in a circular motion. While Nintendo probably had the intention that people were going to be using their fingers to rotate the stick, the consumers found it more efficient to use the entire palm of their hands. The downside to this was that it would cause the consumers to obtain blisters on their hands. This got so bad that Nintendo had to issue gloves to those who owned the game to prevent further blisters from occurring. Yes, these minigames were so bad that it caused legal recourse from Nintendo themselves. But which one is the worst of the bunch? Well, in Tug-O-War, you have a giant Bowser version of one player playing Tug-O-War against 3 other players over a giant Piranha Plant pit, so that's pretty cool. In Paddle Battle, the 3 players have to try to get the one player to shore to get penetrated by the Shy Guy's spears, and vice versa, so that's a neat concept. In Pedal Power, a one-player minigame, the player must ride a stationary cycle in order to power up a giant light before a boo makes contact with them to do God knows what, so that's a pretty intense situation right there. And in Castaways, you fish. And that's it. Yeah, Castaways takes this spot hands down. At least the other minigames had interesting premises executed wrong. This one is a boring premise executed wrong. I could go on a tangent about how fishing segments in non-fishing games are just the fucking worst, but that's a discussion for another day. What a surprise, the worst minigame in the entire franchise comes from the worst game in the entire franchise. Look, even if you don't agree with my statement on Mario Party 8, you at least have to admit that the game does have flaws. It was the 8th game in a franchise that hadn't taken many risks from the first game, so it definitely felt like it was overstaying its welcome. Well, that's not entirely fair to say. It did introduce something new to the series, that being the motion controls, seeing as it was the first game of the franchise on the Wii. And boy, did they make sure that there were motion controls! An abundance of minigames in 8 rely on motion controls, and since this game came out not even a year within the Wii's life cycle, a lot of said minigames didn't work so well. Case in point with Rudder Madness, aka the worst minigame of the entire franchise, aka the most inaccurate minigame name of the entire franchise. In this minigame, the players must steer a lily pad down a river to avoid obstacles such as rocks in order to get to the finish line first. There's only 2 ways that someone could mess up a racing game, and that's relying on motion controls and ruining the pacing. And gosh fucking darn it, Rudder Madness manages to hit both of these out of the park. I've already talked about the controls, so let's talk about the pacing. To say that you move extremely slow is an understatement. You make a snail look like a Mach 5. It's tedious, obnoxious, and so boring. You know, at least with other minigames on this list, you could have an enjoyable time when playing with friends, just with how bad they are, even the ones that physically cause you pain. But this one I wouldn't even want to play with my worst enemy, let alone my friends. And when you get that feeling, that's how you know that you stumbled upon the worst Mario Party minigame of all time. Now, if you'll excuse me, there's a new Mario Party game out, and I think I'm gonna give it a little test drive. I'll see y'all soon. Hey, it's me again. First of all, I just want to say that you don't have to worry, because Only the Beat Goes On is in the top 100 minigames, so at least Nintendo isn't totally crazy. Second, I've got a Discord server that you can join for free, links in the description below if you'd like to join. Oh, there's also a Twitter link too. Alright, that's all from me, I'll see you next time.